You open your eyes, not to the familiar glow of a phone screen or the gentle chime of a digital clock, but to a single, insistent shaft of weak light. It cuts through the gloom, filtering through a crack in a rough, uneven wooden wall. The air is thick, a heavy blanket woven from the smells of wood smoke, damp earth, stale sweat, and something else. Something acrid and animal. A rooster crows, its call not a quaint countryside sound, but a harsh, unrelenting alarm, indifferent to your exhaustion. You shift, and the surface beneath you rustles. It is straw, prickly, and alive with things you cannot see. This isn't a dream. There is no waking from this. You have woken up in medieval times. Your old life, your memories, the very knowledge of comfort and convenience, they are ghosts here. This is your new reality, with its own grueling rhythm. Before we explore the unvarnished truth of this new existence, take a moment to find your own comfort. Settle into your bed and let the sounds of the modern world fade away. If these quiet journeys into the past are something you enjoy, consider subscribing for more tales to help you sleep. Let your mind drift, and let us begin your first day. The light that woke you is a pale imitation of morning. The sun has not yet crested the horizon. In the summer, the day begins long before dawn, sometimes as early as 3 o'clock. The demands of an agrarian calendar, a calendar dictated by the sun and the seasons, wait for no one. Your body, accustomed to a different rhythm, aches for more rest, but that is a luxury you can no longer afford. Every moment of daylight is precious, a coin to be spent in the currency of survival. You sit up, the straw scratching at your skin. The single room you find yourself in is your entire world. It is a simple, crude structure built around a timber frame. The walls, you'll learn, are a mixture of woven branches, a technique called wattle, covered in a plaster of clay, mud, straw, and animal manure, known as daub. The manure isn't just a filler, it is believed to bind the mixture and lend it strength. The floor is not wood, but packed, damp earth, covered with a thin layer of straw for a little insulation. You are not alone. In the dim light, you can make out the shapes of your family, huddled together for warmth. But there are other occupants as well. A pig grunts softly in a corner, and you can hear the shifting and clucking of chickens from a small pen near the door. During the cold nights, livestock are brought inside the hut, not for their comfort, but for their protection from predators like wolves that still roam the forests, and more importantly, from thieves. The loss of a single animal could mean catastrophe for your family. The cost of this security is sharing your cramped, poorly ventilated space with beasts, and the air is a constant reminder of this cohabitation. There is no bathroom, no running water. Your first task of the day involves a chamber pot, a simple clay bucket kept in the corner. Once used, it is your responsibility to carry it outside and empty its contents. Many villagers simply toss the waste into the nearest river or stream, the very same source of water for cooking and washing. Others might use a small waste pit or spread it on the garden as fertilizer. The concept of sanitation as you know it does not exist. People understand that dirt can lead to disease, but their understanding is incomplete, and hygiene is a constant, uphill battle. You will wash your hands and face in a basin of cold water, hauled from that same stream. This basic cleaning is expected at least once a day. Soap, if you have any, is a harsh substance made from animal fat and ash, perhaps mixed with herbs like lavender or rosemary. You might clean your teeth by chewing on the end of a hazel twig until it frays like a brush, or by rubbing them with a coarse woolen cloth, perhaps with some salt if you can afford it. Paradoxically, because your new diet contains almost no sugar, cavities are less of a problem than in the modern world, though the stone-ground bread will slowly wear your teeth down over time. Your clothes are simple and functional, made of wool or linen. You likely have only one or two outfits, one for work, one for church. They are coarse, likely a drab gray or dark color, and worn day after day until they are beyond mending. You dress quickly in the pre-dawn chill. The central hearth, a simple pit in the middle of the floor, is not yet lit. When it is, its smoke will fill the room before slowly finding its way out through a hole in the thatched roof. There is no chimney. Your eyes will constantly sting, and a cough will become a familiar companion. This is your morning, a ritual of basic functions, performed in near darkness, surrounded by the sights, sounds, and smells of a life stripped to its bare essentials. The world outside the thin walls of your hut is stirring, and the long day of labor is about to begin. Before the sun has fully cleared the horizon, it is time for the first meal of the day. For a peasant, this is often the largest, the fuel for the back-breaking labor that lies ahead. You will not find coffee or tea. Your breakfast, and indeed most of your meals, will center around two things: pottage and bread. Pottage is the cornerstone of your diet, a thick, perpetually simmering stew that is more porridge than soup. It's cooked in a single large pot that hangs over the central fire, its base made from oats, barley, or rye. Into this pot goes whatever is available: vegetables from your small garden plantonians, carrots, leeks, turnips, and peas. Scraps of meat from a rarer meal might be added, enriching the flavor. The pottage is a continuous process, with new ingredients added daily to the remnants of the old. It is a warm, filling, and deeply monotonous meal. Alongside the pottage is bread, the staff of life in this world. But this is not the soft white bread of your memory. As a peasant, your bread is dark, dense, and coarse, made from rye or barley. White wheat flour is a luxury reserved for the lord of the manor. The bread is often days old, hard, and heavy, providing sustenance through sheer volume. You might dip it in the pottage, or if you are fortunate, eat it with a small piece of hard cheese. Meat is a rare treat. The forests are full of game boar, deer, rabbits, but these animals belong to the Lord. To hunt them is to poach, a crime punishable by mutilation. The only meat you can reliably eat is that which you raise yourself. Pigs are valuable because they can forage for their own food, making them a cheap source of protein. A pig would typically be slaughtered in the autumn, its meat salted or smoked to preserve it through the winter. Fresh meat is reserved for feast days or the deep winter when there is nothing else. Another source of protein might be eggs from your chickens or fish from the riverbed again. The best fish are reserved for the Lord. You might get permission to catch smaller fish like gudgeon or grayling. To drink, you will likely not have water. The water from the local stream is often contaminated and a source of constant illness. Instead, everyone, including children, drinks small ale or small beer. This is a weak, low-alcohol brew made from fermented barley, considered safer and more nourishing than water. Brewing is a constant part of the household chores, managed by the women. This diet provides a surprising number of calories, enough to fuel a body through 16 hours of grueling labor in the summer. But it is a diet of pure necessity. You will live perpetually on the edge of hunger, where a failed crop or a sick animal means the very real threat of starvation. Now, with the meager breakfast finished, you must leave the smoky confines of your hut. The fields are waiting. The moment you step outside, the village unfolds before you, a small clustered settlement of similar wattle and daub houses and barns. This is the manor, and all of it is owned by a local lord. You are a serf, which means you are legally tied to this land. You are not a slave, but you are not truly free. You cannot leave, marry, or sell an ox without the Lord's permission. In exchange for a fragile sense of protection, you owe him your labor and a significant portion of everything you produce. The vast majority of your life is dictated by the agricultural calendar. Your family has been assigned several strips of land to farm, scattered throughout the village's large open fields. But the work is not solitary, it is deeply communal. The village operates as a single struggling organism, its survival dependent on mutual aid. During peak times like plowing or harvesting, all the families work together. You share a team of oxen for the heavy plowing, knowing that if a neighbor loses an animal, others will lend theirs, because that informal support network is the only security that exists. The work itself is relentless. Your tools are simple, heavy, and inefficient. A scythe for mowing hay, a sickle for harvesting grain, a flail for threshing. The work follows the rhythm of the sun, starting at sunrise and ending at sunset. In the long summer months, this can mean a 16-hour day. The year is a cycle of recurring tasks. In late autumn, you plow and plant the winter wheat. Winter offers a slight reprieve from the fields, a time spent indoors mending tools, spinning wool, and caring for animals. Spring is for planting oats and barley, and for the lambing season. Then comes summer, the most demanding season of all. Hay must be mown, and weeds must be constantly pulled by hand from the fields. Then in late summer comes the harvest. This is the most critical time of the year. The entire village mobilizes men, women, and older children. You work with a sickle, a curved blade, to cut the stalks of grain, stooping and rising, hour after hour, under the hot sun. The work is repetitive, your muscles screaming in protest. You bind the cut stalks into sheaves, which are stacked to dry before being threshed. Even this grueling schedule has small, mandated breaks. The church ensures that work stops for meals, and sometimes even a short afternoon nap. These are not moments of leisure, but necessary pauses to gather strength. Still, the pace is punishing. You work in all weather. There is no concept of a weekend, though Sunday is a day of rest from labor, dedicated to church. But even that is not a true day off. A significant portion of your time is not even spent on your own strips of land. You must perform corvée labor, unpaid work on the Lord's personal land, the domain. For several days a week, you must plow his fields, harvest his crops, and maintain his property before you can tend to your own. The Lord's harvest always comes first. This system ensures that while you might just scrape by, the Lord will always prosper from your sweat. As the sun begins its slow descent, the work in the fields finally eases. But your day is far from over. Your existence is framed by two inescapable forces, your Lord and the church. Every aspect of your life is subject to their authority, and your labor is the currency with which you pay for your place in this world. The work on the Lord's domain is a constant, heavy obligation. It is the rent you pay for the right to cultivate your own small plot of land. But your duties extend far beyond farming. You might be required to build and repair roads, clear forests, or dig drainage ditches. The Reeve, the Lord's supervisor, assigns these tasks, and refusing them is unthinkable. To do so would be to defy the Lord, an act that could result in harsh punishment or eviction from your home. You are also trapped in a web of fees. You must pay a tax to grind your grain at the Lord's mill, to bake your bread in his oven, and even to fish in the river that runs through his land. Every small act that contributes to your survival is a taxable event, siphoning away your meager resources to enrich the man who owns everything. Then there is the church. Its power is absolute, woven into the very fabric of your daily life. The village church is the center of your community, but it is also a source of obligation. You are required to work on church lands for free, often at the most inconvenient times, like the peak of the harvest. From your earliest age, you have been taught that God sees everything, and to shirk your duty to the church is to risk eternal damnation. The most feared punishment is not physical, but spiritual excommunication. To be cut off from the church is to be cut off from the community, a spiritual death sentence that is a powerful tool of control. You must also pay the tithe, a tax to the church of 10% of everything you produce. This isn't just money, it is paid in kind with grain, vegetables, or an animal. For a family living on the brink, giving up a tenth of their harvest can be the difference between surviving the winter and starving. The church collects so much produce that it has to be stored in enormous tithe barns. Some so well built, they still stand today. Yet for all its demands, the church provides a certain structure. The church calendar dictates not only work, but also rest. It is filled with holy days and festivals that mark a temporary halt to the daily grind. Depending on the region, there could be a surprising number of these days throughout the year, offering a break from the relentless toil of the fields, even if they were filled with religious observance. You and your neighbors find ways to manage these obligations, perhaps rotating church attendance so someone can always tend to essential chores. These small acts of cooperation are a quiet form of resistance, a way to navigate the demands of the powers that rule your life. While a man's labor is centered on the fields, your life as a peasant woman is a relentless cycle of work that begins at dawn and ends long after dusk. Your domain is the smoky hut, the small garden, and the endless domestic duties that keep the household from collapsing. Your labor is just as arduous and arguably more varied. You are the spinner, the weaver, the cook, the brewer, the healer, the gardener, and the primary caregiver. Your day starts with the men, tending to chickens and goats, milking the cow if you have one, and collecting water. Then comes the morning meal and the constant task of keeping the pottage pot going. But you are also responsible for the vegetable garden, which supplements the family's grain-based diet. You forage in the woods for herbs, nuts, and berries. You are the brewer, responsible for the family's supply of a lengthy process of soaking, germinating, and fermenting barley. One of your most critical and time-consuming tasks is making textiles. You take raw wool or flax and prepare the fibers, then spin them into thread with a spindle. This thread is then woven into coarse cloth on a loom, from which you painstakingly sew all of the family's clothing by hand. This is not a hobby, it is a vital part of the household economy. You are also the family's healer. With no doctors available, you rely on a deep knowledge of herbal remedies passed down through generations. You know which plants ease a cough, which to apply to a wound, and which to brew into a tea to soothe a fever. Your garden and the surrounding forest are your pharmacy. And then there are the children. Infant mortality is terrifyingly high. Perhaps half of all children die before their first year. Childbirth itself is a life-threatening event. You raise your children while performing all your other duties. Babies are swaddled and kept in a cradle by your side as you work. Once they can walk, they follow you, learning by watching and helping. The notion of leisure is a phantom. While men might get a break on church holidays, your domestic responsibilities never cease. A feast day for them often means more work for you. As the 14th century poet William Langland wrote of the peasant woman's plight, she is charged with children and overcharged by landlords. Woe in winter time, with waking at night, to rise to the bedside to rock the cradle, to card and to comb, to clout and to wash. Your life is a testament to resilience, a constant effort to hold a fragile world together. Childhood, as you once understood it, a time of play and protection is a luxury this world cannot afford. Children are not shielded from the harsh realities of life. They are integral working parts of the family's survival. Formal schooling is a distant dream, reserved for the wealthy or those destined for a monastery. For a peasant child, life itself is the classroom, and the lessons are in labor. As soon as they are able to walk and follow instructions, children are given chores. Their small hands are put to use scaring birds from the seeds, gathering firewood, fetching water, or pulling weeds. They look after the chickens and help their mothers with domestic tasks. A young girl shadows her mother, learning how to spin, cook, and heal. A young boy, upon reaching a certain age, joins his father in the fields, learning to handle the tools and tend the crops. Service is a natural part of growing up. It is common for young people to be sent to work in another, perhaps wealthier, household. This is not seen as abandonment, but as an apprenticeship. They learn essential skills and might earn a small wage. For a girl, these earnings are put towards her dowry, the small amount of goods she brings to a marriage, which can improve her prospects. Life is precarious for children. They are vulnerable to the same diseases as adults, but their bodies are less resilient. They are exposed to the elements, performing labor that is strenuous for their developing frames. There is no special consideration for their age. They are simply smaller laborers who are expected to contribute. Their work is essential. Without the contribution of their unseen hands, the family unit would struggle even more to meet its daily needs. They learn early that life is work, and survival is a collective, unceasing effort. Life as a medieval peasant is a relentless grind, yet it is not a life entirely devoid of light. Within the harsh framework of your existence, there are moments of community and celebration that provide a necessary release from the drudgery. Your primary source of support is the village itself. The people you work alongside are the same people who will help you if your ox dies or your roof collapses. This web of mutual obligation is the bedrock of your community, a form of social security in a world without safety nets. You are all bound together by shared struggle. The church, for all its demands, is also the primary source of your leisure. The calendar is punctuated by numerous holy days and saints' days, when labor in the fields is forbidden. Fairs are often held on these days, transforming the village green into a bustling center of excitement. Traveling musicians, jugglers, and storytellers might visit. You can soak in the festive atmosphere, watch the wrestling matches and archery contests. For a brief period, the weight of daily toil is lifted. Weddings and wakes are also major communal events. A wedding could prompt a week-long celebration of feasting, dancing, and drinking, reinforcing the bonds of the community and weaving individual families into a larger social fabric. The local alehouse is another center of social life, where men might gather to drink, share news, and escape the confines of their homes. Even the weekly trip to church on Sunday offers a respite. It is a chance to wear your best clothes, to see your neighbors, and to experience something beyond the mud and smoke of your hut. In an age without recorded music, the sound of a church choir could be a transcendent experience. The architecture of a well-built church, with its stone arches and perhaps a sliver of stained glass, would stand in stark, beautiful contrast to the grim reality of your daily life. These moments are glimmers of light in a dark world. They are not enough to erase the hardship, but they make it bearable. They are a reminder that even in the most difficult of circumstances, human beings find ways to connect, to celebrate, and to endure. As the last vestiges of daylight surrender to twilight, you make your way back from the fields. The day's labor is done, but the evening offers little comfort. Nightfall in the medieval world brings a profound darkness, a world lit only by the flickering flame of the hearth, or a single foul-smelling tallow candle. You gather with your family in the single smoky room for the evening meal. It is likely a repeat of breakfast. More pottage and another piece of dark, heavy bread. You eat quickly, huddled together on simple wooden benches or stools. The hut feels even more cramped now that everyone is gathered inside. The animals have been brought in, their sounds and smells an inescapable part of the domestic atmosphere. The fire in the hearth provides a small circle of light and warmth, but it also fills the unventilated space with a constant, stinging smoke. There is little to do after the meal. With no light to read by and no energy left after a day of punishing labor, the evening is short. This is a time for quiet chores, mending a tool, sharpening a blade, some spinning by the dim firelight. Stories might be told, passing history and folklore down through the generations. Soon, it is time for sleep. There are no private bedrooms. The entire family sleeps together in the same room. Your bed is a simple mattress stuffed with straw, laid out on the earthen floor. It is a paradise for pests. You share your bedding not only with your family but with a host of fleas, lice, and bed bugs. You might mix fragrant herbs like mint or lavender into the straw, but it is a losing battle. You lie down in your coarse clothes, pulling a rough woolen blanket over you. The sounds of the medieval night close in, the rustling of the animals, the snores and coughs of your family, the distant howl of a wolf, the constant scratching of unseen vermin. Sleep does not come easily. It is the fitful, shallow sleep of the utterly exhausted, a brief, troubled pause before the rooster crows again. When the last of the autumn leaves are swept from the dirt paths of the village, the landscape begins to still. The warm colors of summer and fall retreat, and in their place comes a colder palette, grays, browns, and icy whites. The trees are bare, their skeletal limbs reaching silently toward the ever-graying sky. The air becomes thinner, sharper, filled with the chill breath of the season. Winter does not arrive with a dramatic flourish. It creeps in quietly, almost respectfully, wrapping its long fingers around the village and tightening its grip a little more each day. You wake in a house colder than you've ever known. The hearth has long gone out in the night. You can see your breath. Beneath rough woolen blankets and layers of straw-stuffed bedding, your toes are still numb. No part of the house is truly warm. Every step you take echoes with a stiffness, your muscles reluctant, your fingers slow. The floor is hard-packed earth, now frosted at the edges. You glance at the window, just a shutter really, and beyond it, the world is colorless and still. There is no bird song, no rustle of wind through leaves, only silence and white. The winter is not a passing phase, it is a trial. In medieval times, it was not a given that one would survive to see the next spring. Life during these months became a slow negotiation with nature, with hunger, with cold, and with the gnawing fear of not having enough. In a time before central heating and supermarkets, survival hinged on preparation and luck. The food you eat in winter was harvested in the summer and fall, if you were fortunate. It lives in a pit dug into the cold earth, lined with straw, clay, or even sand to slow rot and mold. This root cellar holds your cabbages, your onions, your parsnips, and carrots. It holds salted meats from slaughtered pigs, dried beans tied in bunches, and perhaps a few precious apples that haven't yet gone soft. But every bite is a calculation. You learn to eat less. You learn to stretch stews with water, to bake bread from increasingly coarse and bitter grains. The quality of your flour has declined steadily as winter wears on. What was once hearty rye may now be mixed with ground peas, bean husks, or acorn flour. The bread is dense, nearly stone-like, but it fills your belly. You do not eat fresh greens. You do not eat meat unless it was preserved. Milk is scarce. Butter is rarer still. Chickens may stop laying. Cows may dry up. If it is a bad year, the cellar that looked full in November is already half empty by January. Every family guards their stores with solemnity. Every visit to the cellar is a reckoning. The light of the oil lamp flickers on the walls of the storage pit. Your breath puffs into the air. You reach for what little remains and try not to think about how many weeks are left until spring. Wood is life. More than anything else, the hearth defines winter survival. Every morning, the coals must be coaxed back to life. Twigs are carefully saved. Bundles of dried brush are stockpiled during the summer, tied and hung in the rafters to avoid damp. Logs are precious. Everyone burned too quickly is a night lost to the cold. You cannot simply chop down trees whenever you like. Wood must season. It must dry for months before it is usable. Wet wood smokes and smolders. It gives no heat. The wise household plans a year ahead, stacking wood under covered lintos, keeping it dry, rotating it with care. Still, most homes are cold. The hearth heats the single room, barely. The walls leak wind. The shutters rattle. If you sit by the fire, your front may warm, but your back remains chilled. If you move away, the cold settles in your bones. Children are wrapped in everything available. Scarves, extra socks, even worn-out blankets become makeshift cloaks. Babies sleep swaddled tightly and placed close to the fire. But the fire is not just for warmth. It is the only source of light. It is where meals are cooked, where water is boiled, where hands are warmed. Everything revolves around the hearth. Even conversation drifts there, because no one wants to be more than a few steps from the flame. Life becomes smaller in winter. The village shrinks inward. Fields lie dormant under snow. The market stalls are abandoned. The roads become impassable when ice or deep drifts arrive. Neighbors may not visit for weeks, especially if they live at a distance. News travels slowly. Time feels slower. Days blur together. The church bell rings, still, to mark feast days and Sundays, but attendance is thinner, and the walk there colder than ever. The villagers bow their heads more deeply in winter. Not just from the weight of snow, but from weariness. The cold creeps into the body and the mind. Even small tasks feel monumental. Drawing water from a frozen well, breaking the ice in the washing basin, stitching cloth with stiff, numb fingers. The days are short, and light fades early. You feel it slipping away just after midday. The dusk arrives swiftly, swallowing the world outside your cottage. Illness spreads easily. Coughs become chronic. A wound heals more slowly. If someone catches a fever, they may not recover. There are no antibiotics. Only warm broth, herbs, and hope. A midwife may help. A neighbor might offer elderberry syrup or prayers. But still, it is a roll of the dice. The winter season has taken more than one strong man, more than one young mother, and always more children than anyone can bear to remember. The mind becomes its own battleground. Despair is a quiet visitor, not spoken of openly. In some houses, it lingers in the air like smoke. In others, it is fought back with ritual, with repetition, with faith. Prayers are louder in the winter. Scripture is read more often. The Psalms echo in the low voices of those trying to remind themselves that spring will come again. And eventually there are signs, tiny ones. A slightly longer afternoon, a day where the frost isn't quite so thick. The call of a bird returning early. A patch of roof where snow begins to drip steadily, drop by drop. These small things become symbols of survival, proof that the worst has passed, that perhaps this year you have made it. You realize that life in the medieval winter is not about endurance alone. It is about community, about preparation, about gratitude, for every small comfort. A spoonful of warm broth, a shared joke by the hearth. The way your fingers slowly thaw in your mittens as you return from the woodpile. Each one a reminder that you are still here, still living. And when the sun rises a little earlier and the wind softens, you know that the world is beginning to shift once again, that soon the fields will call you back, that the soil, for all its hardship, will yield again, that life, however fragile, will continue. You do not celebrate with noise, you do not shout, you simply breathe, quietly, slowly, and begin the work of tomorrow. The thaw does not arrive all at once. It comes slowly, in hesitant steps, like a child walking into unfamiliar woods. The earth is cautious, testing the sun's warmth to see if it means to stay. Mornings are still cold, with frost clinging to thatch and stone. Your breath still fogs the air as you wake beneath heavy blankets. But something is different, a subtle shift. The way the light filters through the shutter cracks, a softness in the sky. The snow still covers the ground in patches, but now muddy footprints show where someone has passed. The roads are no longer lifeless, but broken and wet with meltwater, trickling like veins through the village. Spring does not burst open in medieval times. It creeps, it stretches, it yawns. Each day, a little more of the village reawakens. A shutter that was closed for weeks is now propped open. Chickens that huddled in coops now peck cautiously at the muddy earth. Smoke rises earlier from chimneys. The air, once dry and brittle with cold, now carries the faintest scent of damp soil and moss. You stir from your bed earlier than before. The sun is rising sooner, casting thin gold lines across the cottage walls. Outside, the first real work of the year begins again. The tools that hung idle all winter, the hoe, the rake, the scythe here pulled down from the pegs, oiled, sharpened, tested. Their handles feel foreign in your hands after months of stillness. But soon, muscle memory will return. Soon, they will be as familiar as the weight of your cloak. The first task of spring is not planting. It is clearing. The fields that fed your family last year are rough now, littered with stones and twigs, the furrows lost beneath snowdrifts and runoff. Before a single seed touches the soil, the earth must be readied. Men and older boys trudge across the fields, bending again and again to remove stones pushed to the surface by winter's heaving freeze. Each stone is cradled in the arms like a newborn, then hauled to the edge of the field and placed upon the growing wall that will border the land. These stone walls are not just boundaries. They are monuments to survival. They rise year after year, layer upon layer, marking not just property, but effort, endurance, and time. To build one is to declare quietly, I was here. I worked this land. I gave it everything I had. The plow returns, drawn by oxen whose breath steams in the morning air. The blade bites into the thawing soil, churning it up, turning it dark and rich. The smell is deep and earthy, the scent of potential. Behind the plow, the soil settles in long, parallel ridges, awaiting seed. Planting does not begin until the priest blesses the fields, a yearly ritual tied to both religion and superstition. The villagers gather, bow their heads, and pray for a good season. Some drop bits of grain into the furrows themselves, hoping for divine favor. The line between spiritual faith and agricultural need is so fine it's barely there. Life becomes a little louder with each passing day. The birds return, their songs cautious at first, then jubilant. Bees emerge. Children begin to spend time outside again, their laughter tentative but growing stronger. The old women begin to walk again, slowly, gathering herbs or simply breathing the air. Inside the cottage, changes are subtle. The fire burns less constantly now. The windows are open during the warmer hours, letting in fresh breezes and the scent of thawed earth. The heavy cloaks are aired out and stored. New linens are mended. Spinning resumes in earnest more thread must be made, more cloth, more garments. Time has slipped by. The children are taller than they were at Yuletide. Their shoes must be remade. There are still hungry days. The winter larder is nearly empty. The first green things to appear are meager nettles, dandelion leaves, young sorrel. These are added to thin stews, not because they are tasty, but because they are fresh. Anything new is a gift. If the bees survive the winter, there may be a spoonful of honey. If the hens begin to lay again, an egg is treasured. It is cracked open with reverence, not waste. Spring is not a time of plenty. It is a time of rebuilding, of enduring just a little longer. The days grow longer, yes, but they are also filled with work. Mending fences, digging drainage ditches, cleaning animal pens. Every chore put off during winter now comes due. The list feels endless. Still, the rhythm is different from winter. Less desperate, more forward-looking. At church, the prayers become brighter. Easter approaches. The death of winter, followed by the promise of resurrection. For a moment, there is celebration. A new dress, sewn from scraps saved all year. A small cake, sweetened with dried fruit. A procession of villagers holding candles, walking carefully around the edge of the green. The church bells ring out with purpose. The children's eyes widen at the first flowers to appear in the hedgerows. The village feels stitched together by these small acts. One neighbor helps another repair a collapsed wall. A child runs messages from one cottage to another. The priest stops by with news from a neighboring village. There is talk of the fair that will return in a few months, of cousins coming to visit, of trades to be made. Your hands grow calloused again. Your back aches by evening, but your heart is lighter than it was in January. There is sun now. There is the chirp of frogs by the creek at night. There are shoots in the garden. The barley is planted. The rye, too. You pray for no frost. Time passes slowly. You mark the days by the changing light. You rise earlier. You go to sleep after a longer supper. There are jokes again at mealtime. Someone plays a tune on a carved wooden flute. A small dance breaks out in the yard before nightfall. It is not wild. It is not loud. But it is life. And life, however quiet, is the most precious thing. Spring in medieval times is a quiet restoration. Not dramatic, not swift, but persistent. It unfolds like a song you've heard before but never quite remembered. You hum it without realizing. It fills the corners of your day, and eventually, without noticing exactly when, you find yourself standing in the middle of the village green, arms sore from work, feet muddy, cheeks sun-warmed, and you smile. Not because it's easy, but because it's here. And you are too. You awaken to the low rustle of wind in the trees and the muted tapping of early rain on the thatch above. The air is damp, cool, and smells faintly of wet earth and ash. It is a quiet morning, but not one of stillness. All around, the village is beginning to stir. The birds have already found their song, and the roosters have crowed. There is the sound of the hearth being stirred, the soft thump of wood being added to dying embers, and the crackling reply of flames finding their footing once more. It is a day like many others and yet entirely its own. In medieval life, no 2 days are ever exactly the same, even when they follow the same rhythms. This is a market day, though it does not begin with fanfare. There are no bright tents or shouting traders just yet. First, there is preparation. The sun has barely crested the horizon when the good wife begins pulling goods from the shelves. Carefully, she wraps her wares in cloth and ties them with cord. Jars of pickled onions, a block of hard cheese wrapped in waxed linen, spools of coarse thread spun during long winter nights. If they're lucky, a few surplus eggs. These things are not luxuries, but essentials made valuable by labor and time. They are bartered for salt, for beeswax, for fish, or new tools. Each item exchanged holds a memory of work behind it. Nothing in this world is casual. Everything costs something. Outside, the cart is being checked. Its wooden wheels are wobbly, bound with iron. The donkey is already being fed and harnessed. The straps are stiff with age, but serviceable. Children scramble to help or to beg to ride in the back. Their feet are bare, their hair still mussed from sleep. The father checks the skies. He speaks little, but his face says more. Rain would be a nuisance, but not a reason to stay. The market will still happen. The people will still come. The road to market is well worn, a ribbon of mud and stone stretching between hedgerows and fields. It winds through wooded patches and past streams swollen from spring thaw. Others from the village join the path one by one. A smith's apprentice carries a basket of tools. A woman holds a crate of beeswax candles. A young shepherd walks alongside, leading a small flock of lambs on twine leads. Everyone carries something, and everyone walks. The journey is not loud. There is little conversation. People walk with purpose, eyes to the road. Feet know the rhythm of travel here, the crunch of gravel, the occasional splash through puddles, the creak of wheels, the bray of a tired donkey, the chirp of larks. It is a chorus of patience. The land, the people, the seasonal moving together at a slow, stubborn pace. When the village market finally appears in the distance, it is like a mirage rising up from the landscape as though it has always been there. But it is not a town. It is only a clearing with a few permanent buildings, a chapel, and a green. The rest is brought in each week by the people. Tents and tables, carts and sacks. Everything unfolds and is packed away again before the sun sets. The market is both a necessity and a ritual. By mid-morning, the space is alive. Goods are laid out carefully. Cloth hangs from crossbeams. Sacks of grain are weighed and eyed with suspicion. Fish are arranged on wet boards. The smell of salted meat, tallow, and herbs fills the air. The voices grow louder, not with shouting, but with the steady hum of human exchange. You hear bargaining, small disputes, greetings, and laughter. It is a strange blend of business and community. No one is here to waste time, but no one is in a hurry either. Things happen in their own time. You find yourself watching a man sell a wheel of cheese in exchange for a sack of barley. Another trades a set of knives for a new leather strap and a pair of wooden bowls. No coins change hands. This is a barter economy. What matters most is the value of need. What do you have? What do you lack? What will get you through the month? Some villagers bring more than goods. A fiddler plays for coins near the green. A healer offers salves and potions for trade. A monk stands near the chapel doors with a small basket of prayer books. He speaks softly but with conviction. A young scribe sits cross-legged under an awning, offering to write letters or copy contracts for a price. A group of children gathers to watch a puppet show set up on the edge of the square. The puppets are crude, but their movements are funny, exaggerated. For a moment, the children forget the chill in the air. Midday comes, and people eat where they stand or crouch under awnings. Bread and cheese, dried meat, apples if they're lucky. Someone has brought small pies and is selling them warm. A man pours ale from a wooden keg into earthen mugs. A woman ladles out thin stew from a blackened pot. The food is not fine, but it is enough. The people chew with purpose. They are not here for leisure, but they do take comfort in the crowd. You notice that people exchange more than goods here. They exchange news. A fire in the next village. A new priest arriving at the abbey. Rumors of a new tax. A traveling friar speaking at the crossroads. Gossip too. Who is expecting? Who is betrothed? Who is ill? The market is as much for information as it is for bread and butter. You begin to understand that this space, this simple, muddy square, is the nervous system of the region. If something matters, it will be heard here first. Later in the day, disputes arise. A quarrel over a measure of wool. A disagreement about the weight of flour. A constable mediates, his word final. No shouting, no chaos. Just the slow application of old customs. Justice here is not swift, but it is deliberate. As the afternoon stretches on, the market begins to empty. Goods are packed away. Carts loaded, hands shaken, promises made. The fiddler plays a slower tune. The sun begins its descent, casting long shadows between wagons and tents. The journey home is slower than the journey there. Feet are sore, shoulders tired. The donkey is less cooperative. Children sleep in the back of carts. Adults walk in silence, heavier now with the weight of trade, but also the satisfaction of another week endured. Back home, the fire is rekindled. The new goods are unpacked. A new tool, a handful of salt, a new spool of thread. These things are small, but they carry the future inside them. Supper is simpler on market days, bread and broth. A spoonful of something special, but it is eaten with gratitude, and sleep comes easily. The market is over, but it lingers. The stories, the songs, the deals, the smells, they stay with you. In dreams, you might walk those roads again. In the morning, you will wake not to trade, but to toil. But you will carry a piece of that day with you, and when the week comes round again, you'll walk that path again, familiar as your own name. Because in a world of hard work and simple needs, the market is not just a day of trade. It is a day of connection, of witness, of being part of something larger than yourself. The morning after market day is quieter than most. The air feels a little heavier, the fire a little slower to catch. The village moves with the pace of tired feet and worn-out muscles, but there is no pause. Life in the medieval world does not allow for lingering. The animals must still be fed, the bread must still be baked, the day must still be lived. A new rhythm begins, and you fall into it, almost without thinking. There are chores that only happen after market day. The things that were brought home must now be put to use. The good wife takes her new spool of thread and begins to mend the children's torn tunics. The father inspects the new iron hook he traded for and mounts it above the hearth, where it will hold pots for boiling. A tiny bundle of herbs from a distant village is hung to dry by the window. Everything has its place. Nothing is wasted. Even the wrappings and string from parcels are saved. For tying, for patching, for kindling, a piece of cloth might become a rag or a doll or a bandage. Even the smallest things are precious here. The morning meal is simple, as always. A bowl of pottage reheated from the night before, a crust of bread, sometimes an apple is sliced and shared, its sweetness a rare and fleeting thing. Children eat in silence, their eyes still puffy with sleep. They sit on wooden stools and cradle their bowls carefully, watching the steam curl into the air. Afterward, they wipe their mouths with sleeves and set off for the day's duties. Today, the older children return to the fields. Their small hands are needed for weeding, for carrying bundles, for running messages. The younger ones are sent to the woods to gather kindling. The path to the forest is narrow and winding. It is not far, but it feels like a journey. Twigs snap beneath their bare feet. They whisper stories as they walk about the animals they imagine watching them from the shadows. A squirrel darts through the underbrush. A bird cries overhead. The forest is a place of mystery and usefulness, where the lines between fear and wonder blur. Inside the cottage, the spinning wheel hums. It never truly rests, a steady circular motion. The creak of the pedal, the whisper of wool turning to thread. The good wife spins without looking, her hands knowing the path. Thread feeds cloth. Cloth feeds garments. Garments feed warmth. And warmth means survival. Near her, the baby lies swaddled in a cradle, watching with wide eyes. A cat dozes on the hearth. Outside, the wind shifts. By midday, smoke begins to rise from chimneys again. Lunch is not so different from breakfast. Pottage, sometimes thin and sometimes hearty, depending on the season. There is little change in variety, but the care that goes into each meal is constant. Food is life. The smallest meal is still a celebration of work completed and resources managed. You watch as bowls are handed out and refilled with wooden spoons. The family gathers, not to talk, but simply to be near one another. The sun begins its slow arc downward, and the afternoon becomes a time of focused labor. Today, the task is fence mending. Posts are dug from the frozen earth. Wood is shaped and hammered. Rope is tightened. These fences are not for decoration. They mark what is theirs. They keep in sheep and chickens. They keep out the wild. The boundaries are simple but sacred. A broken fence is an invitation to trouble. It must be strong. The women spend the afternoon near the garden. Though it is not planting season, there is always something to be done. Dead growth is cleared. Compost is turned. The soil is fed and watched. The good wife kneels in the dirt, sleeves rolled up, her hands dark and cracked from years of tending. She pulls weeds without pause, tucking them into a basket for feeding to the pigs. Behind her, her daughter mimics her motions, slower but learning. In the medieval world, knowledge passes not through books, but through hands. The day continues without incident. The chores do not stop. The water pail is emptied and refilled. The wood pile is inspected and restacked. A broken bucket is mended with pitch. Someone sharpens the scythe, slowly dragging the blade across a whetstone. There is no rush, only repetition. Every movement is part of a pattern worn deep by generations. By evening, a soft golden light spreads over the village. It touches the rooftops, the tree branches, the stones lining the fields. The men return from the forest, carrying chopped firewood on their shoulders. They walk slowly, backs hunched, legs sore, but they are not unhappy. The pile by the door grows higher, a fortress against the cold nights to come. Supper is smaller than the noon meal, often the same ingredients, but fewer of them. A piece of bread dunked in broth, a bit of cheese or a slice of salted meat. It is not about variety. It is about consistency, about knowing there will be something to eat tomorrow and the day after. The family eats in silence, their minds already drifting to rest. The youngest child falls asleep with a spoon in hand. As the sky darkens, the candle is lit, just one. It sits in the middle of the table, flickering and unsteady. Its wax drips onto a dish below. Light in the medieval world is a precious thing. It is not to be wasted. Eyes grow accustomed to the dark. Shadows stretch along the walls, soft and familiar. The fire is stoked one final time. The coals are pushed together. The last log of the day is chosen carefully. It must burn long enough to last until dawn. Above it, the iron kettle hangs, steaming quietly. The water inside will be used for washing, or tea, or for warming chilled hands. A small comfort, a bit of control in a wild world. The children are tucked into their straw mattresses, layered with wool blankets. The parents sit a little longer. The good wife stitches a tear in a tunic. The husband repairs a broken handle. Their conversation is quiet. Sometimes they say nothing at all. Just the sound of needle and thread. Just the scrape of wood and blade. Eventually, even they turn in. The candle is snuffed with a pinch. The fire is left glowing, watched over by a cat or by nothing at all. The door is latched. The wind whispers through the eaves. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. A dog barks once and then falls silent. Sleep comes not as a luxury, but as a necessity. It claims them quickly. Their dreams are not grand. They dream of clear skies, of full baskets, of fences that hold. They dream of waking to find that the world for one more day remains as it is, familiar, endurable, understandable. And so the night deepens. The village breathes in slow rhythm. The stars shift quietly overhead, and the medieval world spins on. The morning begins before the sky brightens. In the still darkness, the world is nothing but shapes and outlines. The coals in the hearth glow faintly beneath the ash. A breeze slips through the wooden cracks, touching cold fingers to sleeping faces. A cough stirs someone from their slumber, then a stretch, the creak of a wooden bed frame, and the start of another day. There is no alarm, no bell, only the quiet insistence of life that must go on. A new day has begun, and with it comes the endless procession of small, vital tasks. Someone rises to tend the fire. The embers are coaxed awake with gentle breaths, the brittle sound of straw being arranged, the pop of resin and kindling, and finally the glow of flame licking up a split log. The room warms slowly, never quickly. Blankets are pushed aside. Cold floors meet bare feet. The cottage gradually comes to life, not with noise but with presence, with footsteps, with motion, with work. Breakfast is not a meal of indulgence, it is a necessity. Porridge made from barley or oats, salted or sweetened with the last of a honeycomb, a slice of cheese, a leftover heel of bread softened in warm broth. The food is not plentiful, but it is enough. Each bite is functional, a preparation for the labor to come. The children eat quietly, chewing deliberately, glancing out the small window where the sun has not yet risen, but the sky has begun to lighten to a dim gray. Outside, the village begins to stir. Thin threads of smoke curl from chimneys. Doors creak open. Chickens call. A dog barks once, then falls silent. Everyone has their own pattern, but they move together, as though guided by the same unspoken agreement. It is time to begin. Today is a maintenance day. Not planting, not harvesting, not even baking. Today is about keeping things from falling apart. The thatch on the roof is thinning, the barn door leans, the bucket leaks. These are not problems to complain about. They are facts. Things wear down. Things need tending. Life in a medieval village is less about building and more about preserving. The men gather near the edge of the village with tools in hand. Some carry ladders. Others carry bundles of thatch or tarred rope. The air smells of wet straw and damp wood. The morning dew clings to cloaks and sleeves. They do not talk much. They assess. They decide. They begin. Thatched roofs must be stripped and rebuilt in parts, patched with fresh reeds or straw, layered in patterns that keep the rain from seeping in. It is work done high above the ground, balancing on beams and trusting that their hands and knees will not slip. Others take to the fences. A slat has broken. A post has shifted. They reset it with stones and packed earth. Nails are too valuable to waste, so they are pulled and reused. If a board is too rotten, it becomes kindling. Even decay has value. Everything must be used. Meanwhile, the good wives set to their own repairs. Cloaks are laid flat and stitched. Mittens are patched. Boots are resoled with thick leather or linen stuffed with straw. Each repair is done by hand, with materials saved over time, stored carefully in boxes or baskets. A cracked bowl is bound with metal or sealed with pitch. A broken chair is fixed with twine and patience. Nothing is discarded easily. The children help where they can. Some fetch tools, others hold beams or watch for animals. A few are sent to collect new bundles of straw from a nearby field. They walk in pairs, their feet wet from the morning grass, their eyes bright with purpose. They talk softly as they walk. Not gossip, but wonder. How tall is the tallest tree in the woods? Could they catch a rabbit if they really tried? Is there really a witch in the forest beyond the hill? Their minds move differently than the adults, but they are still learning how to live here, how to survive. By mid-morning, the village is a hum of quiet effort. No one is idle. In a place where survival is a group endeavor, the work is communal. One man helps another brace a beam. One woman lends her neighbor an extra spool of thread. The blacksmith arrives to fix a latch. The wheelwright adjusts a squeaky cart. A boy brings a bucket of water to his aunt's door. A girl carries eggs in her apron to the widow at the end of the lane. These are not favors. They are expectations. They are customs. They are how the village breathes. The sky has brightened now. Clouds move slowly overhead. The air is cool, but not biting. The smell of earth rises from the ground as the sun warms it. Somewhere, someone sings not loudly, just under their breath, a tune repeated so often it has no beginning and no end. It floats through the village, carried by the wind, unnoticed by most, but part of the rhythm of the day. Lunch is a pause, but not a rest. The meal is brought outside, eaten sitting on logs or benches, sometimes just on the ground. A piece of bread, a wedge of cheese, a boiled egg if they're lucky. Hands are wiped on aprons or trousers. Laughter is rare but not absent. There's a brief exchange of words, a soft joke, a comment about the weather. Then the meal is done and the work continues. In the afternoon, the pace slows, not from choice, but from fatigue. Shoulders ache, palms blister, but the tasks must be completed before the light fades. There is always more to do. The barn roof still sags. The rain barrel must be repaired. A door must be rehung. These are things that do not shout for attention, but they grow louder the longer they're ignored. And so they are tended to, one by one, with stubborn determination. Inside the cottages, the women begin to prepare the evening meal. The hearth fire is stirred. Pots are filled with water. A stew begins to simmer, its scent growing richer with each passing minute. A bit of salt, a sprig of thyme, a handful of barley. There is no recipe, only instinct. A hand hovers over the pot. A taste is taken. A nod follows. It will be enough. The children, freed from their tasks, gather near the village green. Some play quietly. Others simply lie in the grass and watch the clouds. Their voices are soft. Their movements small. Even play is subdued. A girl plucks petals from a flower. A boy carves a shape into a stick with a dull knife. They are not waiting for excitement. They are learning to live within stillness. The sun begins to lower. The roofs have been patched. The fences mended. The clothes repaired. The tools stored. The day winds down with the same quiet momentum that carried it forward. The villagers move inside, the doors close, the fires are stoked. Supper is quiet, the bowls are passed, the food is eaten, faces are tired. The fire pops and crackles. Shadows dance on the walls. A dog lies near the door. A cat curls by the fire. The baby sleeps in a cradle, its breath shallow and even. Soon the candle is lit. A prayer is murmured. A story is told. A song is hummed. These are the last notes of the day. There is no celebration, no climax, only the comfort of knowing the work is done and the roof is secure. The people are warm. The food was shared. The quiet is earned. And so they sleep, one by one. The light fades, the stars appear, the village grows still, and the ancient rhythm of labor and rest continues, unchanged, unworried, and everlasting.